welcome to Dancer's Delight Knit Cowl. These are your instructions for chart number 1 of the body of the cowl. Isn't this great? We will be using stranded colorwork to create this really great, fun motif throughout this section of the cowl. Now, the instructions for this are in chart format, and you will find those in your pattern, whether you're following along with the free pattern or you have purchased the pattern upgrade. This is the full chart you will be following along with. You can see that it has a multiple of 20 stitches across, and we will be working it for 17 rounds. Now, the very first round and the very last round are kind of acting like a divider. It's only done with one color, correct? But the colors between rounds 2 and 16, we are changing colors throughout the entire motif. That is called stranded colorwork. As we work across row number 2, we will work with our color G, our green, all the way through stitch number 6. When we get to stitch number 7, we will change to our color A, right? And then we change back to our color G. But we won't use our color A again until all the way down here to stitch number 17. That means that yarn, the color has to float behind all of those stitches before we use it again down here. Now, that's not really a problem, and it does create some really long floats. But there's also a way that we can tuck in those floats as we go, so that way they aren't as long and cumbersome if that's what you want to do. So, a couple things I'm going to do in this video. First thing, I'm going to get you started on this chart to show you how you would handle your yarn using 2 colors. And we're also going to plot out where we would want to tuck in our long floats. And once you do that, you'll be ready to move on and just complete the entire chart. Now, because I was not intelligent enough to film myself as I knit this, we are actually going to use just a little sample that has nothing to do with this. Clearly, it's 1x1 ribbing instead of 2x2. That really doesn't matter. We are here for the technique. So I want to show you how this technique works, okay? Okay, for demonstration purposes here, I will let you know that I am going to use this maroon color as my color A, and I will be using my pink color as my color G, or my green in the chart, okay? So I am jumping off with round number 2, okay? Just so you know where I am, because I figure you know how to knit one full round with that color H on round number 1. So round number 2, we would change colors. First thing I do is I like to tie my color on that I'm going to start using, that I'm introducing onto my old color, just so that it stabilizes the tail, okay? Now I will go ahead and I will knit 6 stitches. Okay, so I have 6 stitches. My 7th stitch is where I'm going to come back and introduce my main color, right? The one that's right here. So you can see it's attached way down here, but I'm going to float it behind all of these stitches and use it into the next stitch. And when I do that, I want to make sure this float is nice and I don't want to call it loose, but you want to make sure it's not pinching all of these stitches together. You want to make sure that your stitches are nice and stretched apart, separated apart on your needle. So when I go into that next stitch and I float this across and I knit and I pop out, my float right here is not scrunching all of those up, and it allows those to breathe, and it allows the fabric to still move. Okay, now I'm done using this one, right? I'm done using this one for 9 stitches. So I just let this one kind of hang out here, and I go back to the color G color, or the green, and I'm going to work 9 stitches. So I just start knitting 9 stitches. Okay, so there's 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Once again, it's time for me to do 1 stitch with this color. Again, look at that float. It's going to be a very long float across all of those. Is it too long? Not necessarily. I would not have to tuck it, but if you want it to be a little bit tidy, tucking it is going to be a great option. I'm going to show you how to do that here in just a minute. But you can see here, I've left my float where it's nice and relaxed. It's not pinching any of the stitches I just created with my other color, and I'm ready to move on. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I would knit my 3 stitches. That would complete the chart as shown, right? That's my 20 stitch pattern repeat. If you wanted to use a marker to distinguish between all of your pattern repeats, you can do that. Just make sure it's different than your start of the round marker. And now I continue on. So I would go back and I do 6 with my first color. Right? And again, this is going to go across 9 stitches, right? So I would go in, wrap, and come out. Okay? Like I said, that float is not too long, but maybe you want to tidy it up. Well, rule of thumb is anytime you have a float go over more than 4 or 6 stitches, you could tuck it. And so here's how we're going to do that. So here's that stitch. Let's work across 5 stitches with our color. What is that again? Color G. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. 5 stitches. Again, making sure those are spaced out. My next stitch, I'm going to tuck. So you can see I have this yarn in my left hand. This yarn is in my right hand. I'm going to go into the stitch with the yarn in my right hand. Okay, yarn in my right hand. I'm going to wrap my right hand needle. Now with the yarn in my left hand, I'm going to wrap my right hand needle. And then now with the yarn in my right hand, I'm going to unwrap. And then I finish the stitch. You can see what that does there is, so here's my float, and it tucked it in right behind that stitch. Okay, you see that? So now I could finish up my 9 stitches I'm supposed to complete here, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The next stitch is supposed to be with this color. Now it doesn't have to come all the way from over here because I tucked it right there, and I can put that in there. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do that one more time. Let's finish 1, 2, and 3. That would be the end of my repeat. So if I wanted to put a marker there, let's do that. And then let's do 4, and let's do this again. 4 and then 5. And then we're going to tuck, okay? Yarn is in my right hand that I want to tuck. Yarn that I want to use is in my left hand. Wrap, wrap, unwrap, knit. See? It's nice and tucked in there. All right. Finish off my 6 stitches here. And now I'm ready to knit with this one. And it was tucked right there. Can you see that? Okay. If for some reason I wanted to tuck this one, I'm just going to show you just in case. So I have my yarn over here, my yarn here. Let's just assume I was going to knit a couple with this yarn in my right hand. And let's say I wanted to tuck my pink. Okay. This is how you would tuck it if your yarn is over here in your left hand, and this is the one you want to use in your right hand. You go into the stitch with the yarn in your left hand, you lay it on top. See how you're not wrapping? You're laying on top of your right hand needle. Yarn in your right hand, you would wrap. Yarn in your left hand, you would like take it off of the top. And then you would knit. That makes that yarn grab right there, and you would be ready to continue on. And it tucks that pink in right there. Okay, so if you want to tuck the yarn that's in your left hand, that's how you would do it. I'll show you one more time. You go into the stitch, lay your yarn on top from like back to front, wrap with your right hand, unlay it on top. I don't know how else to say it, and then knit. Okay, so that is how you will tuck in those floats as you're going along if you want to do that. You do not have to do that. So if this is something that's tricky for you and you're like, man, that just seems a little bit too confusing, you don't have to do it. What you are going to be most concerned about as you're working on your project is you want to make sure that your work itself is separated apart the distance that you want it to be throughout. So that way you're not crunching your stitches at all with those floats. Because these floats, you will not stretch them. Okay. So if your work starts to really pucker because your floats are too tight, you have to start over. Okay. So you want to make sure those floats are giving you nice slack between where it's used before to where it's used next. Okay. And it's okay if they look like they're droopy as you're working around. Like if you look on here, as I'm working on this, they look kind of sloppy and droopy, but as it's worn, look, it's like they straighten out. You see what I mean? So you are okay to have longer floats, just keep them nice and consistent. Okay, so that is how you're going to hold the yarn in each hand. So notice I had one color in one hand, the other color in the other hand. I'm going to keep that consistent. If I have the pink color in my left hand for this round, I want to make sure anytime I'm using this pink color, I always want to keep it in this hand, whatever other color I'm going to use in this hand. Okay, does that make sense? So I could just continue on and knit just like so. If you have trouble having a yarn in each hand, what you want to remember is trying to keep the placement of the yarn the same. So let's say that you want both yarns over here in your right hand. So if I am going to knit this pink, let's go along with pink a little bit. And let's say I want to go to this one next. I'm going to set the pink down and I'm going to grab this one and I'm going to make sure that I'm coming from over here and coming on top of the pink. Okay. And then when I do that, and the next one needs to be pink, I don't want to twist these. It's not intarsia. This one I said over here, and now this one is over here ready, and it's going to be underneath this one. Can you see that? So I'm keeping the floats consistent on which one's on top and which one's on bottom. And I do that by just keeping control of where I place that yarn, because you'll let go every time if you want to do that. And you can go like this. Now, I know there are people who will hold both yarns just like so, and then they'll go and they'll wrap one color or the next and kind of have the colors twisted. You can do that if you want. It's not my recommended way of doing it, but at the end of the day, it's your project. You can decide how you want to do it. My preferred method is using one color in each hand, especially when it gets down to using 3 colors or 4 colors in a round. I like to have what I call my main color in my left hand and the other colors that I'm using over here. And I handle them just like this. Like if I had a third color over here in these 2 colors, I would always make sure like the light pink was here and the dark kind of maroon was over here. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, now that we've talked about tucking stitches, there's an important aspect of this you need to know. When you're tucking stitches, you do not want to tuck a stitch every single round directly on top of the same stitch that you tucked it on the previous round. So for example, on this project, we started tucking our stitches right around here, right? I knit 5. So I knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then this stitch here, we did a tuck, correct? And then we did 1, 2, 3, and then I used it. Okay. What I don't want to do is in round 3, when I come back, I don't want to do a tuck in that same spot. Otherwise my color is going to show up. I'm better off doing a tuck either over here or somewhere else along this row. For me, I usually would probably do it right there. Okay. Just to space them out. And then on the following row, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're already using one. So there's no need to tuck. Does that make sense? So if we were to start this off, you have your pink or your blue, 1, 2, 3, tuck. There's your blue, 1, 2, 3, tuck. So we would start this off. If we wanted to start off tucking our stitches, we could knit 2 with our color G, tuck with our color A on this one, and then finish with our color G and then use our color A, so on and so forth. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay. So, and then on the following round, you just don't want to tuck on the same stitch, right? The same column of stitches. So I could move that over. Okay. And like I said, on round 4, it's only going across 5 stitches there. So I wouldn't have to. And you could do this on your own chart. So like right here on round 6, there's a huge swath of like non-stitches going on here, right? So let's go here. We could go 1, 2, we could do it there. See, it's separated enough there that I could do it up there. I just don't want to do it right after it. Okay, then it's 1, 2, 3, use the white. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's put it on the 5th one on this one. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it uses the white, right? So that makes sense. So then we're doing it every 5th stitch. This one here, there's a good amount. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 stitches there. I don't really like that spacing out. So I, again, would want to tuck. I don't want to tuck directly on top of that one though. I don't want to do that. Maybe I move it over and I do it on this one. Okay. Do it on that one. I come up to round number 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, that's kind of a lot. So I would probably choose that one. And I can see here around 10, I'm going to have the same situation. So I choose that one. And I can come over here. It's the same thing going on here. And I can go like that. And I could go like that. Right? Round 7, that was the only one. So we 8, 9 is good, right? 9, we're only going across 4 stitches as the biggest path that we have. Then we're back to 11, which is like 7. So we could choose the same place we tuck because it's not directly above it as far as like the next row, it's up here. So we could do that. Then we have 12 again. So we could tuck right there. And then let's see, we could tuck right here. I should say 12 again. So 12 is like 6, right? And then now we're coming up here. We're on 13. Everything's good. 14. Everything's good. 15 is like round 3. So we could do one right there. Right? And then round 16 is like round 2. So we could do one right there. Right? And then the same thing down here, right there, and right there. So now these X's all indicate that, hey, Marley, as you're knitting across, when you come to this stitch, not only will you be knitting with your color G, but I want you to tuck the other color you're using in that row. Does that make sense? So this is a way you can really help yourself out as you are working along a project where you have large swaths of fabric where you have a float going across a lot of stitches and you don't want those floats to be really big and long. You want to tuck them in. This is the best way to kind of pre-plan out the way you're going to do that. Okay. So what I want you to do now is go ahead and since you have finished your ribbing, you will start off with round number 1 where you will do the full round with just one color. Okay. Then you're going to go to round number 2, which is just like what we just did. And you're going to follow along with round 2. You could place your X's like I did, and you could tuck in your extra color if you want, or you don't have to. It's totally up to you. Okay. Move on to round 3, move on to round 4, move on to round 5. Now, here's the next thing I want you to know. As we go from round 5 to round 6, we're changing colors. We are no longer using color A, we're changing to color C, right? So I want you to cut your color A, leaving a nice long tail, at least 4 to 6 inches, okay? Cut that. Then you're going to join your color C right here on round 6 all the way through round 12. Then you will cut your color C after round 12 is complete, and you will rejoin your color A on round 13. Anytime a color is going beyond more than one round to use again, you're going to cut it and rejoin, which will leave you a lot of tails, which brings me to the very last bit of your instructions. When you finish this portion, I do want you to go ahead and I want you to turn this inside out and I want you to weave in all of your tails. Okay. Get all of these tails woven in because as you're working through each of the charts, if all of these are complete, that just makes your whole finishing at the end that much easier and faster. And when it comes to weaving in your tails, it's really as simple as grabbing a bent tip tapestry needle or a sharp chenille needle. That's what I like to use. Thread it through the eye of your needle and then just come in here and work through the actual fabric. I'm threading through the fabric. My needle is not going to the outside of my work. Okay. I'm threading it through all of those stitches and I'm going to pull this through. Okay. And then I'm going to make my way back. So I'm going to make my way back through these, You could work through your floats. I don't 100% recommend it because sometimes that makes the floats pull a little bit more and you can distort your stitches. But if you just go down and back, just like so, you should be good enough then to just snip your tail and you will be good to go. Okay. Now, some of you might be wondering, okay, Marley, well, this is all great, but I haven't really done a gauge swatch yet. So here are a couple options. You can either cast on a few stitches, like just a few stitches, and play around with stranded color work and test out to see if your gauge is correct. Or if I'm being honest, this is what I would do, is I would just get started with this and I would use this first section, even the first couple inches, use this as your gauge swatch, measure it, see if it's what you want. It's a cowl. It doesn't need to fit a body just like a sweater. So you have a lot of wiggle room here. So if it were me, I would just use this first chart as your gauge swatch, moving on from your ribbing directly into this section here, and you should be good to go. If you're using this nice tweed yarn, you're going to see a lot of flex and a lot of texture and some fun looks to your cowl, but I cannot wait to see yours, everybody. Go ahead, grab your pattern. Remember, this is available for free on the Marley Bird website or in your pattern upgrade. And if you have that pattern upgrade, don't forget you also have the full color blocks. So if you don't like reading charts like this, you could always read the color block. And, you could print it out by color. And this tells you exactly with that green, you're going to do 6. With that blue, you're going to do 1. With that green, you're going to do 9. The only trouble with this is it's harder to know when you're going to tuck. So if you're familiar with tucking and you just want to do it willy-nilly, you can just, pop it in wherever you feel like. But these color blocks are really, really handy if you get confused if you're looking at this. I also want to remind you, if you have the pattern upgrade, that means that you have the Stitch Fiddle link for this. So you can go in and you can change these colors out to fit the colors you are using. You could also use the row tracker, which will highlight each row as you're working along. So that way you can keep track of where you are. Many different options. Good luck, everybody. I'll see you in the next video.